What is up, guys? Delboy here. So you would have seen that I uploaded a video to the channel earlier talking about Teddy Atlas being on the Joe Rogan Experience, which is obviously a podcast. Really good episode. I would highly recommend you guys take a listen and see what you think. But in that podcast, Teddy Atlas mentioned that he was offered work as a trainer once again, and he's been offered to train Oleksandr Gvozdyk to fight Adonis Stevenson in December. Obviously, Adonis Stevenson is the WBC light heavyweight champion. Oleksandr Gvozdyk is his mandatory. Now, I've seen a lot of reaction to this online about Atlas potentially becoming his trainer, and a lot of it has been negative. I think a lot of people out there are kind of on the fence when it comes to Atlas as a trainer, especially in terms of, training fighters in terms of making them technically better. The jury is out, A lot of people out there, they weren't really impressed with the work he done with Povetkin, for example. A lot of people weren't impressed with how Tim Bradley fought Pacquiao in their third fight. And a lot of people attributed that to Teddy Atlas. There's a lot of question marks in regards to Teddy Atlas as a head trainer. I've seen a lot of people really kind of raise their doubts about him. But I actually think Teddy Atlas and Gvozdyk could be a decent partnership. Now, Gvozdyk is obviously a standout amateur. He was an Olympic bronze medalist, part of that 2012 Ukrainian Olympic team, which has been one of the best boxing Olympic teams in recent years. So in terms of amateur pedigree, he's got it all. He's got a lot of ability. He's got a lot of talent. There's not many trainers out there who can make him better technically. But I think one thing I feel Gvozdyk needs, and one thing I've always felt he's needed, is a motivator. I feel that Gvozdyk has been very guilty of switching off in fights. Sometimes when he's winning a fight easily, he doesn't really go through the gears like he should. And sometimes, he just gets careless. I feel a guy like Teddy Atlas, a guy who's a motivator, a guy who's going to get under your bonnet if you kind of slack. Maybe that's the type of guy Gvozdyk needs. Maybe he doesn't need a guy who's trying to teach him things he already knows, or trying to adjust his style to be something a bit more conventional. Gvozdyk is a really fluid boxer. He has quite a unique style, and I feel sometimes with fighters like that, when fighters go to the pro ranks, sometimes I feel that certain trainers might actually try and coach that natural ability out of them for them to be a bit more conventional. Teddy Atlas, on the other hand, maybe, he's going to try and make subtle improvements in terms of their technical ability, but I think overall he's not going to mess with that style too much, but he's going to be there to motivate them, to be a drill sergeant, to really make them work hard and turn up and fight to the best of their abilities. And in regards to the criticism about his lack of ability to make fighters better technically, maybe that's true, maybe that's not, I'm not sure, but I felt, for example, Povetkin, when he was with Povetkin, I'll be honest, it was kind of hard to see whether he was making Povetkin any better, if not maybe making him worse. But after Atlas went, after he left, or after him and Povetkin parted ways, I felt some of the Teddy Atlas traits actually then started to kind of shine through in his game. Some of the Tyson-esque traits, little bits here and there. Nothing crazy, but some of those traits started to show through a little bit. And maybe that was because of Teddy Atlas. Maybe he implemented those things into his game, and it just took Povetkin a little while to get used to them. And maybe when he got used to them, that was when Teddy Atlas left, so who knows. But to say Atlas can't make you a better fighter, I think maybe a little bit harsh. Again, I'm not convinced about him as a technical trainer, but, he's worked with some great fighters. He's obviously worked with Custamato. There must be something there, So, yeah, I can see why people are apprehensive about Atlas and Gvozdyk working together. But I don't think he's a terrible trainer, and certainly he's a motivator. And, I feel that if there's a fighter that's in a tough spot, if he's not doing enough, Atlas will say, and maybe if a fighter responds to him, it could win him the fight, We saw that with Michael Moorer when Moorer fought Holyfield, for example. Atlas really kind of read him the right act, and Michael Moorer won the fight. And maybe if that wasn't Atlas in that corner, maybe he wouldn't have. So, and I feel that sort of trainer will be good for Oleksandr Gvozdyk. Maybe I'm wrong. He also mentioned on the Joe Rogan podcast some of the issues that Gvozdyk has. He mentioned that, again, he pretty much mentioned what I said, where kind of Gvozdyk switches off. He's guilty of getting caught flush a few too many times in fights. And again, that's something I've said in the past. I feel that Gvozdyk gets caught a little too cleanly for my liking, but he also mentioned things that he liked about Gvozdyk. He mentioned that he seems like a true fighter. He's a family man. He's a guy who wants to improve. He was very complimentary of Gvozdyk as a person and as a fighter. So maybe those two could get together and work for the Stevenson fight. Atlas and him really need to work on his defense though going into that Stevenson fight, because I think Gvozdyk can win that fight, but if he gets caught with one of those silly shots that he's been getting caught with, against Stevenson, despite him being 41, it could be lights out. So they're only going to have one camp together if this does happen. So they're going to really need to get to work and implement a game plan to beat Stevenson. So I think it's an interesting story, I'll be honest. And I do think this can work. I don't think Teddy Atlas is for everybody. But I do feel for certain fighters he can get them to that next level, or he can drag that great performance out of them. And I think Gvozdyk could be one of those fighters, but I might be wrong. We will see. Tell me what you guys think. Peace.